Belinda and HarperAudio Australia present this unabridged recording of Ever Reddy's Trip of a Lifetime, written by Fiona McKenzie Kekic and read by Zehra Naqvi. In memory of my dear and courageous friend Jane Hanson, a warrior and a damn fine journo. You taught me to roar, and roar we did. And to my dad, of course. 1. A very bad big birthday. The worst day of my life begins, as so many of my very worst days do, with an early morning text from my mother, and not a few minutes before the alarm is set to go off early. This is pitch black, deep sleep, not even 5 in the morning early. I don't need to check caller ID. If the timing is appalling, if my body twitches and switches to flight or fight mode, it is my mother. Plus, my mobile is vibrating to the tune of Cliff Richard's Devil Woman. Case closed. But even by my mother's despicable standards, today's text is unconscionably early. And to be very clear, my mother sets an extremely low bar for inconsiderate and reckless behaviour. Remember when COVID was first lapping our shores and passenger ships were stranded at sea all over the world? Instead of bunkering down like any sensible senior citizen, my mother snagged a fabulous deal on a cruise. A few days after they set sail, I got a muddled pre-dawn text. She and my father had been offloaded somewhere on the Australian coast. As you can imagine, it is incredibly difficult and time-consuming to organise transport for 2 people who don't know their exact location and are too proud to ask. That's one day of my life I'll never get back. Then there was the Great Leaning Tower of Pisa fiasco. On that occasion, my mother's text came in the late afternoon, Central European summertime. It was somewhere around 3 a.m. in Sydney. My father was already getting a bit doddery, but he still looked after all the holiday logistics. Apparently, my mother didn't want to undermine his confidence. Anyway, on this particular day, Dad decided to carry all his cash and all his credit cards, as well as all my mother's cash and credit cards in his wallet. He then proceeded to tuck the wallet into the back pocket of his trousers and stride into a densely crowded tourist plaza. The bleedingly obvious happened, and I ended up taking a day off work to track down their banking details, which might or might not have been in their safe at home. I sorted that one out. I can't remember how exactly. What I do remember is the carefully stapled printout of a magazine article next to Dad's computer. It was titled, "How to Avoid Pickpockets in Europe." He'd even highlighted some paragraphs. Now they are overseas again. I pull the doona over my head, cover my ears, and pretend for a few blissful moments that I am the kind of person who can ignore their mother, and that Debbie Reddy is the kind of mother who can be ignored and not retaliate with months of passive-aggressive sniffing. But she's currently traipsing about the subcontinent with my confused father in tow. So, for the foreseeable future, I am a slave to my phone and her willful indifference to time zones. Just add 4.5 hours, I had explained to her before she boarded the plane to Sri Lanka. It really isn't that hard. But my mother had responded with a perfectly lobbed sniff and an "of course," which is her equivalent of a raised middle finger. Somewhere out of arm's reach, but well within earshot, my phone continues to belt out Cliff Richard. For a moment, I worry the commotion will wake my sleeping husband, but a quick glance across the no-man's land of our bed confirms that Jonathan is already out the door and on his way to the gym. I feel a wave of resentment, but tamp it down. Why shouldn't Jonathan keep fit? What kind of awful person begrudges her husband investing time in his health?
Sample complete. Ready to continue?